Welcome to Energy is Currency, the Millennial Development Podcast devoted to helping you mind your business personally and professionally. My name is Alexis Williams, and I am your marketing consultant, idea generator, and mini modern philosopher, the entrepreneur that checks all the boxes, whatever that may mean. Subscribe to Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and iHeartRadio to listen to every gem in every episode. Season 1 is available on all streaming platforms. Welcome. We are back for our next episode of Energy is Currency. Y'all, I just want y'all to know I'm having so much fun with this because I am talking to people who actually get the concept of energy is currency. And now they're kind of applying it and remixing it for their lives. And I think that is just the bee's knees. So today I'm going to have another conversation with the beautiful Jacqueline Orent. And let's just take a moment. We need to get the details. We need the background. We need to know everything about you. So I'm going to be quiet. You're going to be loud. Let's learn.
Sounds good to me, Alexis.
The floor is yours.
Great. Well, my name is Jacqueline Orent. I am the co-founder and CEO of something called the Cultural Catalyst Network, which is literally a network for cultural catalysts. And cultural catalyst is an ideal identity for many of us who feel like we need a new culture, that the culture that we're in is sick, it's dying, it's crumbling. The world is in some ways, let's talk not on a political level, but, when we look at what's actually happening right now, one of my mentors is someone by the name of Ray Dalio, who is a famous investor, and he created something called Bridgewater Associates. And he was actually the first person to systematize investing back in the 70s.
Oh,
and
really?
What he's actually done is study macroeconomics about what is happening now has actually happened before.
Okay.
Actually, the rise and fall of empires. And some of this exists with, the challenges that we're experiencing have happened before, but we get so involved in what's happening right now that we actually don't realize that we can actually be part of the solution. And that's what the Cultural Catalyst Network is for, is we are here to redesign structures, new and existing structures, to create the culture that we want to see, one of prosperity, of philanthropy, of synergy, of coherence, and really, I believe, the full actualization of humanity and our potential.
I love this. Where did this idea start? Ideas are I like to call them like infections. Like you have it crosses your mind and then it becomes your reality. Like, how did this start for you?
Yeah.
I know you
So
want
for
to break
me,
mentorship.
I have a really long and windy story that's going to be more than a 30-minute podcast. I'll do my best to be as specific as possible. But it was a few years ago. I've been a coach for nearly a decade and sales in a long time. And I was a sales leadership position for a purpose-driven organization. I was extremely grateful to be making the impact I was doing. And what I realized in that position was that I couldn't make the exponential kind of change that they were wanting me to from the middle. And I realized that to be able to create systemic change, I needed to do so from the top. And I learned this firsthand because the COO I was working hands in hands with was actually preventing me from working from the top. And there was all the systems in the way, and it was actually completely a disaster. And then the whole team and the organization actually went through, basically, they lost almost the entire organization, and it's since been rebuilt since then. And now they're doing a lot better. But one of the things that I realized in that was to be able to create exponential change and to actually create the change that we want to make, it starts in the minds and even the energy of the leader who is the primary decision maker. And so I had an experience with a multi-business founder that got me to see that in real time. And then I actually got to take my outcomes from my coaching practice and apply to grad school with a thesis in connecting consciousness to systemic change. And doing so opened up a bunch of doors, which basically I got to find out that the research for how cultural change already exists. And how do we actually not just make incremental change, but exponential change? That research already exists. And I got to meet two very prominent researchers, one by the name of Richard E. Boyatzis, who spent the last 60 years studying change from the individual to the organization to the community level. And then I got to meet Dr. Benjamin Hardy, who's paired with Dan Sullivan for many books like Who Not How, 10X is Easier Than 2X.
Yes.
So I got to meet Ben. He got to read my thesis, and then he told me not to read any of my other stuff besides The Science of Scaling. And so basically I got to realize that the research for how how cultural change already exists between that and the last decade I've been studying consciousness, and specifically Dr. David Hawkins' consciousness scale, integrating those three sciences into what we call the cultural catalyst system. So
Yes.
consciousness being the root of everything, how change actually happens, which is called intentional change theory, and then how to actually accelerate it, which is scaling science, and then all together in one system, specifically around an identity, a dream, right? Which is,
Yeah,
this
for
is
sure.
highly studied across Ben. This is, we have it associated with Dr. Joe Dispenza. We have it with the first step of intentional change theory is literally connecting to your ideal vision of yourself. And so when I say I am the co-founder of the Cultural Catalyst Network, I myself am a cultural catalyst, and my sense is you might be too. And so a lot of your listeners are here for that too. And we are purposely doing that so that we can identify each other. We can come together and actually create a new vision for what the culture looks like and actually make that happen.
I love this so much. I feel like I need a bullhorn for this episode. Like I want everybody to hear me as I record it. Like everybody needs to hear this at full volume because to your point, we are on such a precipice for a totally different world. And I think like I almost feel like time is accelerated nowadays where 5 years, think about it, the pandemic was 6 years ago at this point.
Crazy.
Like literally it started 6 years ago.
Yeah.
It's, around this weekend. And it's, that concept is like so much has happened, so much time has passed, so much life has happened, but everything feels much more different than it did pre-pandemic. So I say all of that to say the things that I was able to do, the rules I played by, the mindset, all of that, none of that felt like that worked post-pandemic. So like we're on I know I'm not the only person that feels this way. I know that much. I know I'm not the only person that feels this way. What are some indicators of change that we need to be like aware of, or like how do we start to hone our awareness or acknowledge it? How do we start to actively participate in change the way that we see it? Yeah.
Well, I think the first step that I want to acknowledge is, what are the indicators that we're looking like to know that we're going through a massive shift right now? Because I know a lot of us can sense it. We're like, this is weird. This is messed up. And our parents are like, this has never happened in my lifetime. And my grandpa's like 95 and he's like, I've never seen the world so divided, right? Like this is going to come across the entire generations. And one of the things that Ray teaches is that oftentimes and this isn't just Ray, this is like actual research over the rise and fall of like hundreds of different empires over time that he's been making investing decisions on inside of a systematic way. So that's where this is coming from, is that there's certain indicators that are around us that it's helpful for us to get out of our little world views and actually get to see a bigger world view of what's happening. And there's certain things that one of the things is, the rise and fall of an empire usually doesn't happen in one person's lifetime. Absolutely. It usually it's a larger time frame. So the poor people before us are our grandparents, right? They don't know that this has happened before. So we're all like kind of freaking out right now because we're like the world is ending. But no, this has actually happened in history before. So it's helpful to know that specifically. Yeah. And so there's certain indicators that we know. So the natural disasters, like the immense amount of fires we got to see in the last many years. I've lived in Oregon. It's crazy. The skies would just be taken up with gray and just like totally not breathable, all the way up to, what happened in California last year where that whole area got burned down like crazy. We have floods, we have, pandemics, like those are actual parts of certain indicators of what happens when there's a rise and fall of different world orders.
So let me ask you this. Is there like a specific empire that we could start tuning into? Because like the one that's standing out just in this conversation, maybe not geographically, but like maybe politically or socially, is like the Roman Empire.
Totally. Right.
So like, what's a good empire? If we could narrow it down to one, just for conversation's sake, where should we start even doing our research?
I mean, I think for me, I actually don't have enough to be like, this is what it is, other than like, there's actually, if you want to do more research on this, if you look up Ray Dalio, A Changing World Order. There's a 45-minute video on
Okay.
YouTube.
Okay.
And then there's a whole book on it too.
Okay.
So like there's a lot of information here, but we're using that as a being like, oh, and even just like the civil unrest that we have against each other right now, the left and the right. I'm not going to say one's right or wrong. I'm not doing that here.
Sure.
But what I'm saying is that like civil unrest is one of the indicators of a changing world order. And a world order is basically described as something that is like, basically after a world war, all of the world powers reorganize in terms of who won, right? And that's actually what changes it. And that also affects who has what's called the reserve currency. And the United States has been a reserve currency for a while now. And one of the indicators of a changing nation is actually that they start printing money. And we saw that in 2020. They just printed a whole bunch of money. There's been a bunch of inflation since then. And this is another indicator of basically the changing order of it. And as we see, we're in a conflict right now, exactly an example of what's happening at the moment. And so the reason why this is important is not to get into the politics of who's right or who's wrong. It's to realize that this has happened before, right?
For sure.
And
For sure.
empathy for ourselves to be like, wait a second, I can get out of my lizard brain for a second and realize that there is something greater happening at the moment, and I actually have the ability to be part of the new that comes out of the destruction of the old.
Oh, you know what? I think we speak a lot to the calamity of the experience. We don't speak enough to your point, to the concrete reality of what happens post things like that. Like for instance, with the pandemic, I don't think people paid attention to the fact that post was that World War I, the 1918 and 1920, that was basically an influenza pandemic. Not, I don't want to say the phrase similar, but not unlike COVID that we experienced, where the whole world was on lockdown and it was a global world issue happening at one time medically. So, but to your point, we spend so much time on the trees that we forget that this is a forest and other forests exist. So
and even, it's funny, I really associate with trees. Like I'm very much an anchor myself, and I also live in Boulder, Colorado, where I see the mountains, and I'm like the mountains are like way bigger and they last way longer than even the trees, right? Like the mountains are here for millions of years when the tree could be here for hundreds of years. So like when we scale out and look at an even bigger view, that's the point of that work from Ray Dalio. It's like, take a step back. There's a macro event that's happening here. And that does give us the choice and the authority to actually step out of the reaction to it and actually get to respond and also release the judgment of it, right? Like our brain is primarily functioned to categorize things as right or wrong, or to create separation between ourselves and others.
And to assume fault. And to create a system of fault. This is your fault. You created this. This is your problem. That kind of association too. Yeah, for sure.
Yes. And that is not how we're going to create a new culture. So an aspect of how we're going to create a culture is, starting to bring wholeness to the part of the mind that actually does create that separation. Because in reality, that doesn't exist. In reality, there's just wholeness. In reality, there's just oneness. In realities, and you also have to understand that the physiology of the mind isn't set up to be able to see that. It's actually one of the limitations of a human being.
Ooh, so it's inherently human to be fear-based, to think smaller, to be calamity prepped, but it's not necessarily, we haven't made it to that space of evolution where we've integrated what you're talking about.
I'm here standing.
You're here prepping us for integration.
Yeah. And I've done a lot of that integration work. And part of my background actually is, I left corporate America nearly a decade ago and went on a self-discovery journey of who I am and what I wanted to do. And that ultimately led me realizing I needed to heal my body. And it led to an extreme spiritual experience in which I actually fasted on water for 36 days.
Oh, how was that? Can we spend some time there? What was
usually gets people stopped, so we can spend some time. But the reason I want to say there is I got to experience a level of reality that I didn't even know existed at the time. And that's what I mean is, and I've had a lot of experience with having to integrate what had happened in that experience. And a lot of my mastery has been in the mind, specifically, and overcoming the mind specifically. But I got to basically see that love is completely impersonal.
What? Okay. Please explain that. Love is completely impersonal. Because the way society describes love, it sounds everything except for impersonal. It sounds very, very, for lack of a better phrase that just popped up, clingy. It sounds
Yeah. Well, that's attachment.
right. It's a lot of
Yeah.
attachment, a lot of
Yeah. Yeah.
commitment, a
Yeah.
lot of enmeshing. So how is it
Totally.
impersonal?
So my experience with the fast, first of all, I went into the experience wanting to heal my body, to heal the world. And I had no idea that I had the capacity to, when I set my mind on something, that I'll go through absolutely anything to do it. That was an attribute of my personality that I didn't know existed until after that fast. And what I actually got to see and witness in that fast was a variety of different things that I have actually studied in my different consciousness books, basically. My main teacher is Dr. David Hawkins, who is a physician and an MD.
I
So
love
he
him.
actually molded spiritual science and consciousness. So I'm able to talk woo here. And for the people who are like, this is completely woo, that's fine. You are correct. This is woo. And this is also science.
No, honey,
So
we talk
I'm going to go
about,
there.
we mention David Hawkins in every single episode. Let's be
You
very
see what I
clear. This is a David Hawkins fan club, okay? If
Good, great.
he doesn't know I exist, but I know everything about him.
He totally knows you exist. And you can actually hang out with Hawkins in the field and you can talk to him directly. So just so you know, he's available to you at all times. And one of the things that I've been a huge student of Hawkins, primarily because I was given his book, Power versus Force, in the treatment after the fast. I actually realized that I was leading my whole life from force. And a little bit of background on that is my dad's was an executive, and I'm also an Enneagram 8, which means I'm the commander. So between those two things, I was just forcing everything.
Kicking the doors in. Okay.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that at the time. And reading that book really helped me realize that for me to actually, first I realized that for me to actually change the way that I worked, I would need to change the way that I am. And then the second aspect of that is the way that we actually create systemic change, or in our situation, cultural change as cultural catalyst, is actually through who we are and our essences, or in Gene Key's, that's city. It's your beingness specifically, which is applying Newton is nonlinear dynamics and chaos theory, which that's part of our masterclass. So you can learn about that later. But
yes.
So what I actually got to experience in the fast was a lot of the things that Hawkins talks about, which is timelessness, imperturbable peace.
Yeah.
Okay. Complete presence, no thoughts, direct knowing, there was no thoughts, completely driven by intuition, and just like completely living in synchronicity and miracles. And the biggest thing that I got to take away from it, because, I love my mom dearly, and I wasn't taught what real love, self-love is. Okay. But I got to experience it during the fast, and it literally flows through you. What I mean that love is impersonal is that love is who you are, because it is literally what is flowing through you. And your mind tries to think that your love is out there through your friends, through your family, through your experiences from the places that you live and the things that you do. And that's not true. That's why a huge part of my work and the what's gotten me here is the mechanism of surrender that he teaches, is how do you actually release attachment to actually change your consciousness from who you be to who you are and what you do and what you have, all those different things. So I got to experience that in real time, and it completely reoriented my personality.
Yeah.
Beforehand, I was like money focused, and afterwards is like, I'm here to be of service in alignment with my purpose. And my entire life completely reoriented around that. And the rest of the world hasn't necessarily caught up yet, but I have met a number of different people along the path who are already living in this paradigm already, and who already are being the new codes of consciousness and building systems and businesses and projects, and creating a new level of consciousness through their own dharma.
Right.
That started with karma. Their karma, just like mine, my karma started into dharma. So the Cultural Catalyst Network is an integration of what I've had to embody. And, when I talk about that separation of mind, when we look at the mechanism of surrender that Dr. Hawkins teaches, the second step of it is judgment. Okay. Yep. And oftentimes people just stop at good or bad. But when you read his higher level works called The Eye of the I, for example, what he's actually teaching you is what the mind does is it creates positionalities.
Yep.
Which is our specific frames on reality that literally prevent you from seeing one thing or another. But the only problem with that is that's a limited reality.
Yep.
And that's why my work with dialectical behavioral therapy, which is a specific therapy model that uses mindfulness as the base, and it uses the yes and philosophy. And when I meet people who are up in the ethers but needing to ground, we need to stand in this perspective of, it's like, yes, I can judge the shit out of this person, and they are also part of me, right? Yes. That's the way that we unwind the positionalities of the mind, is by being able to sit in the dialectic of the and.
Yes, I love that.
And I can hear you.
Yes, I've definitely through yoga, through my training as a yoga instructor, had to
Mhm.
learn the depth of that, the depth of
Yeah.
the yes and, where it's not, no, this isn't the end of the world. And
Mhm.
multiple things can coexist. I can dislike how it was done and be grateful for the outcome. It's
Yep.
lots of combinations, but and I think I learned this in landmark training. I did some
Yeah.
landmark trainings a long
Yep.
time ago, and
Yep.
they referenced the importance of but and how powerful the but is.
Yep.
So if you say, "Oh, I have a lot of work to do, but I don't have any time to it," you've disempowered yourself from
Yep.
being able to do it. But by replacing the and, it
Yep.
creates more space for it. So I have a lot of work to do and I have very little time. Okay, so now we need to work on efficiency.
Yep.
Or now we can delegate. Or now we can ask for help and bring people in so we get more
Yep.
hands to complete it. But unlocking, I personally learned the power of unlocking yourself from
Yep.
the but and replacing it with the and. Yeah. So
Yes.
okay,
And
back
I want to
to
add
the
to that,
episode.
right? When we're creating a new culture as cultural catalysts, we're going to need to be able to sit in those yes and statements,
Yeah.
because that's actually how we surpass duality, right? When people
Hmm.
actually talk about duality, right? It's like a this versus that. It's the positionalities of the mind specifically. And so for us to create a new culture where there is, collaboration, buzzword, right? Where we
Right?
can actually work together. We're going to actually need to be able to sit in this yes and. And I actually want to take, instead, you're saying or right now, I want you to replace, it's not just yes or, because or,
Mhm.
and the essence of DBT was that, it was initially created for people who had extreme highs and extreme lows emotionally. So,
Exactly.
and so to get them out of, and one of the reasons that they were going through extreme highs and lows was because they were in extreme thinking that was caused by extreme statements of or.
Yep.
Okay, when we
Or
look at things from yes
always,
yep,
or never,
yes,
these absolute statements that didn't
yes,
allow for any
yep,
flexibility. It
yep,
creates such a
rigid,
rigid experience. Yes, rigid. The
yes.
word of the
So it
day is
makes the
rigid.
mind rigid. It makes the mind rigid, and it gets people stuck into a closed mind. And what we're going to need to do is learn how to open our minds to all different types of people, all different world views,
Yeah.
all different things that even if we don't like it, even if it drives us crazy, even if it makes us feel terrible when we hear it, we can still acknowledge and be present with that experience
Yeah.
and still validate it.
Yeah. We have to learn not to be reduced by what we are hearing and experiencing. And I think we've been conditioned to believe our self-worth is so tethered to externals.
Well,
But I love that in this next movement that is going to be much more internal. I feel like I've already lived there. I feel like
yeah,
maybe I
we're
own
good.
some
We're on the
property
same page there.
there.
It's fun.
Maybe I own some property there. Because I'm noticing, like, from my journey of obsessing with David Hawkins and my own
Yeah.
self development journey, I
Yeah.
have really pulled. I was just telling someone I used to have such beautiful plans and strategies written out and planners built and vision boards and all of these things that would help me stay focused and
Yeah.
get the things that I wanted. And the more I focused on managing my emotions and maintaining my frequency,
Yeah.
I really, can I be honest? I struggle to plan the way I used to now because I'm
Yeah.
like, no, it'll come to me. I don't need to
Yeah.
figure out
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
step. That step will figure me out.
I
And
understand. I kind of went to the same, I had the same reaction, just so you know. I went from like controlling everything to surrendering everything. And now I've been finding the middle path between
yeah,
the two of those.
for sure, for sure.
Because what the change research actually says in creating change is that there is a time for a plan and a goal, but
Yeah.
oftentimes people set it too early in their change process.
Okay.
So you have to consider a goal to basically be like blinders on a horse,
Yeah.
okay? But you need to know where you're going before you put blinders on a horse. So as a cultural catalyst, the first step of the cultural catalyst system is to, one, I am a cultural catalyst if that's true to you. And two, it's what is your vision as a cultural catalyst? And I'm not just saying in terms of impact, but I'm talking about in health, in relationships, your character, your spiritual life, your holistic vision for yourself. And from there, once we actually know what you want, then we can put blinders on. But otherwise, we're accidentally going to be pushing instead of pulling. And ideally, we want to connect with a vision that's greater than ourselves, that inherently creates the pull through the inevitable challenges of doing something new.
I love that. We're creating magnetic energy here now.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. So how do we get started? What do we need to do? Where do I sign up?
Where do you sign up? So the next step is actually, so if you identify as a cultural catalyst, which by the way, it's been purposely structured as that. Mm-hmm. One of the things that, I've learned in my basically career as a coach and in sales for a long time, was that I was being limited with selling results or offering results to my clients. And eventually I got to a place, because I'm addressing consciousness at the root, is that the outcomes that my clients were receiving were extraordinary. So much so that it was beyond what the mind could envision, right? Of course, because that's what the mind gets in the way. And so I actually worked with a coach to help me realize that I needed to sell a dream, that I needed to connect to a dream of the people that I'm here to call to serve. And it actually came out of one of my long-term clients' mouth this past year, cultural catalyst, actually. Ooh. And then my business partner was like, that's all who I want to work with. And then I'm introducing myself as a cultural catalyst. And when people hear that, oftentimes they're like, me too. I didn't even know what I was going to call it. No one's even given me that language until me now, but me too. I'm totally a cultural catalyst. And that's something called a social identity group. Okay? Yeah. So intentional change theory, we are creating a social identity group for cultural catalysts specifically. Mm-hmm. So if you identify as a cultural catalyst, we are literally making a network for you of cultural catalysts, because one of the things that actually makes fractal change is something called resonance, not coherence, but resonance. And resonance is made up by shared vision, shared energy, shared compassion, shared hope, and centered in mindfulness. Those are the 5 attributes of resonance, right?
Oh,
and
I love this.
Vision, the cultural catalyst identity. When I say I'm a cultural catalyst, you automatically, and you are too, you're like, I'm a cultural catalyst too. So we automatically know we have resonance to some extent, right? We might have different levels of competence. So we've got a different system for that. But it helps you identify who's on your team. So if you identify as a cultural catalyst, we actually have a masterclass that's actually a transformational experience. So go to culturalcontribution.com, where you actually get to vision as a cultural catalyst 10 to 15 years into the future. You actually get to set an impossible goal. We're using scaling science to actually accelerate someone's impact and not make it just incremental, but exponential. And then we're actually giving them the non-negotiable infrastructure that makes change sustainable, which is what's called resonant relationships. So we're literally applying the science of 3 different researchers, Hawkins, Boyatzis, and Hardy, into one integrated system called the Cultural Catalyst System. And that's the underlying architecture under the network, so that we can actually create the new culture that we want to create.
I love this. I love this. Like I'm giving it a moment to resonate.
I can feel your excitement through the screen right now.
Say what?
I can feel your excitement through the screen right now.
Right? Because it's very isolating to be on a self-development journey. It is very hit or miss on what information is valuable, what information is realistic, what information is credible. Let's use that word. So being able to access an environment that has all of those things already mastered, so you can just focus on the development. Because a lot of my self-development process has been weeding out. Okay, this doesn't work. Yeah. Okay, nope, I don't resonate with that. Okay, this doesn't make sense. I'm a little leery of you. Things like that. Going through that process, that sorting process, that filtering process.
Yeah.
It can lead people off of it, where they stop believing in it, or they get tired of it, or they burn out, or they lose their hope for it. So having an anchored space like this is necessary. It's 100% necessary.
And I've got some special medicine for you, because that's it's 2026 right now. I was introduced to Hawkins' Surrender book back in 2020. I was controlling everything, and the coach I was working with at the time told me, and I was like, of course, my mother's like that. So I've read that book over 12 times, gone through my own surrender experiment. And my whole life has changed since then. And for many years, it was just letting go. Yeah. And nothing would really stick. Everything just kept filtering. And in the last couple of years, things have started to stabilize on the other side of surrender. And that's
For
actually
sure.
where I find true stability.
Okay.
True stability doesn't come from holding on to something.
No.
True stability comes from surrendering into it and seeing if it naturally comes back to you or not. That's how we've lived from a place of interdependence instead of codependency
For
specifically.
sure. For
So
sure.
when we comes to, our personal development work, because I know I've been there, it's like you hit a wall with you're like, I've done the thing, it's lost its juice, right? Well, it's probably because you've become the thing you set out to achieve, and now you need to set a new vision.
There's more work to do. Okay.
Where is it you are going? What is your desired impact, your legacy, your values, your purpose in the future? Because one of the things that we see in people who've already achieved what they've set out to achieve is that they go through this place, it's called the achiever's dilemma, which is this like, it's comfortable, right? And it's maintenance, but that's not where living is. Living is found in growth. And so that's why we actually have people go through the scaling science in our masterclass, because once we actually do the visioning out, which is called prospection into the future, we actually have them look, it's what would be, based off who you currently are and your current competencies and, what would be an impossible impact goal?
Okay.
That you would make you change who you are, how you think, and how you spend your time. Okay.
Okay.
So it makes you literally create a new vision for yourself, and it's literally causes a paradigm shift from who you are, and you walk out of the call as a cultural catalyst, literally in your body, because you've literally connected to that. And then we actually have you go through in what's called emotional freedom technique, EFT, also known as tapping. We have a master practitioner and teacher on our team who actually does that work to actually not just get this idea of what it is that you're wanting to do at this next level, which in some ways might seem a little crazy, right? And why set an impossible goal, right? Well, because it gets you to redefine who you are.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yes.
Why not? There's more reasons to do it than to hold back, I think that's beautiful. I think we have so much work to do. I think that is beautiful. How can we connect with your business? How do we start our connection with the cultural catalyst?
Yes.
So you have your masterclass. You have a masterclass.
Yes, we have a masterclass every single week, and you can sign up for that at culturalcontribution.com, or you'll literally walk out a different person. Okay, so it's a transformational process. And for those of you who are like, yeah, we got a place for you, and for the other people, you can follow up and you can be a part of our social media at the moment, which you can find us through the Cultural Catalyst Network, through LinkedIn, through Facebook, and through Instagram as well.
What kind of people are you looking for? Like, who is your ideal person? Because there are going to be a lot of people, as powerful as the phrase is. Yeah. There's going to be a quick wave of people shortly saying, oh no, I'm a cultural catalyst, and they won't fit that. What does a genuine cultural catalyst look like for you?
Great. Well, so for me, when I got the phrase, and when we're literally applying Hardy scaling science when we're creating this thing right now, and so when we're looking at the scale of it, the best example I can use is how Elon built out Tesla, right? He started out with his top level model, and then he went to his mid-level model, and then he went to his low-end model, and he used the profits of each of these models to fund the next one, basically. Right. So what we're doing right now is we're starting at the top of the hierarchy right now. One of the experiences that I've had is that cultural change happens for the people in what I call critical systemic leveraged positions. So people it's basically applying the butterfly effect in real time. It's like that one butterfly who just moves its wings and it creates a disproportionate amount of change, right? There are specific individuals who are listening to this that are that. They're like, I impact lots of people. I have the ability to make an impact to lots of people. I have the infrastructure, I have the team, I have the resources, and I have the desire to make a change that's greater than myself. Okay. So we're starting with the people who are in leadership positions, on Maxwell's scale. That would be either level 4 or level 5 leaders. And level 4 leaders are people who are consistently able to deliver results to other people, who are developing leaders. And level 5 leaders people follow them because of who they are and what they stand for specifically. So what I have to say is there are wisdom keepers out there that are older than you and I.
Ooh, I like that phrase.
That are holding wisdom that we don't need to figure out. And that was the biggest thing with grad school. I was like, I thought I had to do this research myself. No, Hawkins already did it. I just needed to go apply the research. And I see that a lot with our generation, because I'm a millennial as well, is that we think we need to go figure out how to make the regenerative farm. No, we don't need to figure out how to make the regenerative farm. It's already been done. Okay. We need to be open-minded enough to realize that the research already exists, that the wisdom that already has, like, there's literally people who've devoted their entire lives that have the wisdom that you're looking for All we just
Right.
need to do is apply it.
And I feel like our generation and the ones after us, we weren't taught, or it wasn't connection wasn't prioritized, especially here in the US. Like, we grew up with hustle culture. I feel like I talk about that a lot.
I'm in recovery. Yes, I'm
Okay,
aware.
right. I'm a recovering hustler, right? It's like, I have to work. I have to figure it out. I have to do it. Or I don't know people who do this, so I'm going to be the one to create it. But it's like,
Yeah,
wait a minute, slow down and connect. You're not
yeah,
isolated in this experience, but
totally.
you have to do the due diligence of connection. And
Yeah,
I'll be very, very transparent. That's something that I struggled with, to the
yeah,
point where people would say, well, you're an island. And I took offense to it because, for one, I'm very efficient and very resourceful. Yeah, I'm a very person. Okay, put whatever you want to after very. I'm that. However, I didn't think that it would have been counted against me that I wasn't recognized as connected.
Interesting.
And
Okay.
so I had multiple experiences where people were like, "Oh, well, you lack that connection," and it's like, I had never perceived. I've been groomed and
Yeah,
programmed for my own power and to do my output
totally.
and to give and to be the
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But I had never seen people be rewarded for their community.
yeah,
And now it's been monetized. So it's like, we went from it wasn't a big deal to now you're making money off of it, but we never figured out how in the
yeah,
process, or a select few got the
yeah,
opportunity to figure out how. So I had to make that a priority of mine. Like,
yeah,
how do I
yeah,
prioritize connection over being prepared, or over being
yeah,
ready, or the things like that? How do I prioritize connection
yeah.
to heal my nervous system?
Totally. Yeah. And I think I'm going to come back to what the research says on this in regards to change theory, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
so there's something called who you are right now, which is the real self, and your ideal self is who you want to be. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then there's the ought self, which is your cultural conditioning. It's your trauma. It's who you should be. It's the expectations of you. It's your genetic baggage. It's your ancestral stuff. It's your past life stuff. And it's the stuff that you don't see, but it's affecting you. That stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's your ought self. Okay. Your real self, the biggest challenge with the real self is that the way that the mind is structured, that it literally, you cannot see yourself accurately because of the ego defense mechanisms. Okay.
Ooh, you
So
cannot
that's
see
why
yourself
sometimes in these
accurately through your defense mechanisms.
yeah,
Okay.
you literally cannot see yourself accurately through your ego defense mechanisms. And so that's why feedback is so important. And that's why I
Mm-hmm.
love, Michael Singer's work particularly. It's everything that happens in front of you is truth, basically. And it takes 180 billion years for something to happen, basically, like this
Okay.
conversation with you.
Okay.
So this aspect of what do we need to be? What do we need to do to actually change the culture? And it actually starts with just having an open mind, for starters, just practicing the character trait of open-mindedness, because
Yeah.
the people around you are reflecting things in you that you can't see.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that's
Mm-hmm.
not to your own fault. That's literally how the mind is
That's just
structured,
how it is.
right?
Yeah.
So what that does is it illuminates what you don't see. And then what it does, it creates a gap between who you are right now and who you want to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
So ideally, what we want to do when we're giving feedback in that way is that, what the science says is that we need to be giving feedback from something called PEA, which
Oh.
stands for a positive emotional attractor. You also could
Oh.
talk in scale and say that's an attractor scale, right?
Yes.
So 200 and above is an attractor scale. So it needs to be given from a place of, I have your ideal self in mind when I give it to you. I believe in you. You're going to rock it. I'm going to give you feedback to help you get where you want to go. Not, I'm going to give you feedback to criticize you.
Right.
I'm going to give you feedback to ridicule you. What that does is it creates NEA. It puts
Yes.
the brakes on the change process specifically.
Yes.
So when we talk about being a cultural catalyst, first of all, like, how can people on this show actually do something about it? Number one, owning the fact that you are a cultural catalyst.
Okay.
Saying that you are a cultural catalyst. Introducing yourself as a cultural catalyst will literally help you identify people who are cultural catalysts. And one of my goals is I want cultural catalysts to be part of our linguistics. I want it to be part of our language. And what the science actually teaches us is, since our brain filters our decisions through our goals, when we identify ourselves as a cultural catalyst, Tony Robbins says that there is no force more greater than probably love in the universe than identity.
Yes.
So,
I
for
agree.
example, I had a client this past year. I didn't even have to do any of my previous work with her. I just had to hold her accountable to be a cultural catalyst, and she changed her behavior. And she's nearly 70. So when you have someone older like that, they tend to be more entrenched in their patterns. But I was able to just she wanted to be a cultural catalyst. Step one. Step two, by holding her accountable to being a cultural catalyst, she was able to actually change her behavior and change her entire business and step into something that's taken her 20 or 30 years to do.
Wow.
So when I say, what can people do with where they are, it's own the fact that you're a cultural catalyst and find the other ones around you, because those are the people that are actually going to sustain the change efforts. When you're talking about community being the thing now, that's because literally your peers that are in resonance with you, that share vision, that have compassion for your competence and your capacities and what you're going through, that share energy and activate you, that have hope with you and your vision about creating a new culture, can make it fun, right? This actually is like going to the gas tank. It's like your peers who are cultural catalysts are like going to the gas tank and filling up your car so you can keep going. And what we know about change, back in like the 1500s, Machiavelli, who's a strategist on like literally Renaissance strategist, said that there's nothing harder to do than the creation of a new system, because the old system is designed to protect itself.
Yes.
And so what that means is to be actually able to sustain our change efforts in the creation of a new culture, we literally need the right people around us to be able to fuel our tanks and for us to actualize who we are and what we're here to do.
We literally need the right people around us to fuel our tanks. Let's say this one more time. You literally need the right people around you to fill your tanks. And I don't think people understand the gravity of that statement, because it has so much weight to it. It's a grounding statement while also being an accelerator, because the right people will definitely get you back into a realistic mindset. Not necessarily I'm not trying to say they're going to limit you, but they're going to help you to see the reality that you need to exist in, right? And
sometimes
hopefully, fingers crossed.
One of the things that we talk about is the peers that got you here won't get you there.
Okay.
So you could even say that your peers are infrastructure, right? Just like your parents are, for example. Your family's infrastructure, your friends are infrastructure, and they've got you to where they're going, right?
Right.
And this next iteration of you, the one who has a vision of being a cultural catalyst specifically, if that resonates, again, people who don't resonate, that's fine. I'm not going to take it personally.
That's all good.
It's meant to filter for resonance. Is that just like the systems are designed to protect themselves, so are our relationships. Ooh. Our relationships are designed to keep us where we are, because they can't see where it is that we're going necessarily, or they've gotten us to the specific ceiling that we've gotten us. Yeah. So when it comes to our next iteration, that's why surrounding yourself with the new person that actually supports you where you're going, and not just who you are, the real self, but your ideal self, but is literally the right people. And that also means some of the people that got you here won't go with you to the next iteration. That's the real reality of being human, of living and losing. That's why attachment is such a human experience, and releasing attachment to people is very emotional. But in creating something that's greater than ourselves, we have to get honest about ourselves, what's below our floor and what's preventing us from actualizing who it is we want to be next.
Yeah. Yeah. And I totally agree with that. Definitely having the right people around you is important, because we're programmed to experience a certain type of people. We're programmed to rely on our family initially, to learn from them. And that is so much conditioning, years of disempowered conditioning, that by the time you do get a sense of self, you have a lot of work to still probably undo. If you have the luxury of being able to unpack it. Because for some of us, the luxury doesn't feel accessible. I won't say it's not accessible, but the belief system around accessibility isn't there.
And you know what, when I see that, there's a level of, and I have that with my mother, for example. It's just like, she is where she is, and that's practicing acceptance. Like, radical acceptance is the third step of the mechanism of surrender, which involves not trying to fix or change people. And we're not able to accept things as they are if we're trying to fix or change people, and so on and so forth like that. So it is the real reality of growth as we grow, and also recognizing that sometimes maybe that's not their dharma in this lifetime to do that. That's not up to you to instigate that specific thing. And one of the things that intentional change theory talks about, something called a tipping point. A tipping point is literally what facilitates someone from one phase of life into another, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be losing a job, right? My whole journey started because I got fired from a dream job 10 years ago.
Right.
And then you have someone else who's like their husband died in a car accident randomly, or
I think we all had a collective tipping point with the pandemic,
yep,
where
precisely.
that was a unified tipping point,
Yep,
How do you want to
yep,
continue living when everything is changing? So,
totally. So, and the thing is, we get to consciously choose to participate in a tipping point, or we get to resist, and neither of those things are wrong. Evolution is going to keep doing its thing, and
I
we're welcome to
love
participate
that.
or
So,
not.
I have been really experiencing or participating in the awareness of resistance, knowing when it's like, the solutions are there or whatever the case, feeling that pushback. What are your thoughts on resistance? I love that you said
Yeah,
that both are necessary and both are okay. But what are your
yeah.
thoughts? Let's talk
Well,
resistance.
that's me playing in the yes and that we were talking about right there, right? There's no such thing as good or
Exactly.
bad. So,
Yes.
one of the things that, when we talk about resistance, and so I'm in Boulder, Colorado, which is this like conscious hub, okay? Like it's super woke here, not in the terms that the government's talking about, different type of consciousness than they're talking about specifically.
I got you.
And yeah. So there's a lot of practitioners around me, whether it be coaches or therapists or healers. And my journey is a little bit different just because I went to such extremes, and it took a lot to get out of it. And so for me, I had to develop a skill set that worked no matter what, to come back into reality and do what I'm doing. And the biggest thing that I find is that people get stuck in different steps of the surrender mechanism.
Okay.
So when you look at the mechanism of surrender, it's feel the emotion or the energy until it runs out. Step one. Step two, not judge it as good or bad, but as we go deeper into what that really means, it's actually not having positionalities.
Mm-hmm.
And then step three is accepting things as they are without trying to fix or change them. And what I often find, and it took me 4 years with my business partner to finally get her to get it, but when you're stuck on something, you need to run yourself through that list and be like, where am I?
Mm.
Am I judging it, or am I trying to fix or change it, right? And once we actually
I
know where we're
love
stuck
that.
in the mechanism, we can change it, because that gives us the willpower to know how to use our mindfulness practice to be able to unlock it.
Yeah.
And that also helps you find where you're in resistance to your resistance. And that's where things get stuck. When you're judging your judgment, right? That people
I
judge their
shouldn't
judgment.
be feeling this way. I shouldn't
Yeah.
be having
Yeah.
these thoughts. This is
Yeah.
wrong for me to even be considering this. And I hear a lot of people like I have a hair loss clinic. So of course, basically I'm a therapist. I'm a very very uneducated therapist. But back in the salon, I hear my clients sending themselves through this loop of I don't like this. I don't like that I don't like this, but I shouldn't dislike that I don't like this. So I'm
Yeah.
going to tolerate it because it's not fair for me to dislike it because it's something that
Yeah.
everyone else likes. And it's just like, ma'am,
And then
that
lose it.
made no sense. Can you please
Yeah.
stop?
Totally. So that's why,
Please stop.
part of the backbone of the Cultural Catalyst Network I talked about is emotional freedom technique. We have a master practitioner teacher by the name of Sonia Sophia. She's got the World Tapping Circle. It's another resource for your audience for people who are wanting transformation work very affordably. That works.
Yes.
Is that there's a language that goes behind being able to change these things with people. And one of the things that she often says is, will you give yourself permission to take this to your grave?
Say that one more time. Will you give yourself permission?
Take this to your grave.
What does that mean? So does that mean, okay, we're going to hold on to this until we die? Do we keep this secret? Is this a suppression? What does that mean?
Well, you're giving yourself permission to accept that you actually don't want to take it to your grave, or that you will take it to your grave. So I had a client a couple of years ago, massive founder, received over $60 million of funding. And he'd been going to a therapist and working on all this stuff. And I got in there and I was like, will you give yourself permission to take this to your grave? And he was like, actually, no. And you see his whole nervous system release the thing. So what we're doing is we're giving people to accept themselves where they are. So that's when people are trying to get themselves to forgive people, sometimes they need to give themselves permission to not forgive those people, or to never forgive those people. You have to accept the step you are on before trying to fix or change it.
I love you have to accept the step you are on before you can change it. I think that's necessary because we definitely try to, in the quest to avoid heavy emotions, we rush ourselves through the process.
Yeah.
And we
And,
kind of logic our way through the process.
I mean, everyone processes differently too. Like he was super logic brain, major engineer, built this like whole big blockchain thing. He's in his brain, right? And the biggest thing about the mechanism of surrender is that it's actually a mechanism of the mind. And what I've learned to realize is that your mind is in the way of you feeling the thing that you need to feel. And that your mind is actually blocking yourself from the attachments that are in your thought forms, that are in your judgments, that are you trying to fix or change the things. All of these things are attachments that hold energy. And one of the things that I really took away from that book is that there's can be thousands and even millions of programs in an emotion. And so one of the things that we talk about in the masterclass, and one of the things I think I've gotten so amazing results with my clients versus coaches get varying results, is that I'm not just addressing the belief system. I'm addressing the underlying consciousness that the belief system is expressing as, right?
Yes.
It's an attractor field. It can be calibrated, and you can tell what it is when people are talking. You're like, they're in shame, clearly, right? They're angry. That is wantingness. That is desire, right? So, and that's why this is, the 80%, this is, when Tony Robbins talks about, mastery, he's like 80% is psychology and the 20% is execution. And so most of their people spend their lives just mastering their mind or not. Okay. Yeah. So it's crazy in there. So, and that's the thing. That's why it's so helpful to have such a simple tool, like a mechanism of surrender. And like Sonia's EFT resource, is that we have like clinically researched techniques to actually change how it is that we're calibrating the way that we show up in the world. And that is where we start creating a new culture. She has a saying that your personal evolution fuels the cultural revolution.
Oh,
and so that is the beginning of being a cultural catalyst, of practicing self-responsibility, of being open-minded enough to be able to let life tell you what you can't see. And it's also important that you have a vision that's greater than you, that's strong enough, that's actually pulling you through the inevitable challenges so that you grow and that you become who it is that you set out to become. And ultimately the impact you're going to make too.
I love this. We could talk all day about this. And I think listeners would stay the whole time. And we just have a good time. We eat popcorn. We grab snacks. I want our listeners to wrap up this episode and get on your website so they can start it on your mass.
Yeah, totally. So our website is culturalcatalyst.net.
.net, y'all.
For Cultural Catalyst Network.
Okay.
And you can find us on social media, the Cultural Catalyst Network, through Facebook, LinkedIn, and what's the other one? Facebook. And
are you on Instagram?
Yeah, Instagram. That's the one I'm labeling. Yeah. Gotcha. We also have a website that you can sign up for our email list that's currently being built right now. And then if you're like, I want to have an actual experience where I walk out somewhere different, we got a masterclass. So that's its own at culturalcontribution.com.
Culturalcontribution.com.
Yeah, because that's the whole point of this, right? Yeah. When we're talking about being a cultural catalyst, we're not just, and the way that business has currently been run, it's often just for revenue but when we're actually talking about making something that's greater than ourselves, that's why we're talking about contribution, which is the other, the 6 basic needs based off Tony Robbins. The spiritual ones are growth and contribution. And so for people who are wanting something that's just greater than themselves, that's why we're here. We're making a cultural contribution together as cultural catalysts.
Good. Well, I appreciate you as the lead cultural catalyst for making space for us. Let's rally the troops. Let's get us together so we can do this the right way.
Yeah. And the right way and the wrong way. Because, one of the things that is part of the system is reflection and iteration, right?
Yes.
There's no such thing as perfection except imperfection. So there is an aspect of reflection is very much of this part of this process as we evolve and we create the new culture that we live in. So that's why it helps to have a healthy dose of self-compassion and self-acceptance so that we can have that for ourselves and for each other as we go through these growing challenges that are inevitable.
I appreciate you, Jacqueline. This has been beautiful. I hope everyone listening, I hope you feel empowered and are ready to take it to the next level because it's happening whether you want it to or not. And if you want to check out this episode of Energy is Currency, we're on Spotify, Apple, and Amazon. And you can visit BlushBiz online to learn more about the brand that produces the show. So until the next time, remember your energy is your currency. Thank you so much, Jacqueline. I look forward to connecting with you even more, learning more about your services and becoming a cultural catalyst myself. Listen.
Yes. And that's, I think, the biggest thing.
It's time
Just
to
when
take
you're
it
on.
serious.
Well, and that's the thing. I talked to another guy about this too on another podcast. His name is Hale. He was like the business expansion podcast. That was a really great episode with him.
Mm-hmm.
All you need to do is introduce yourself as a cultural catalyst when you meet people.
That's it. That's
it.
That's the first
And
step.
literally change your behavior. You calling yourself a cultural catalyst, introducing yourself as a cultural catalyst will actually start reorienting you so that you start taking action in alignment with that ideal vision of yourself.
That's it. That's it. You got to start with your language and start with how you identify.
Yep.
Start with how you identify. Well, we got to go. I have thoroughly enjoyed you. Thank you so, 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 so much. Make sure you are checking her out and learning more about the Cultural Catalyst movement. But until then, don't forget your energy is your currency and please use it wisely. Oh my goodness, that was so good.